My name is Shannon Kenitz, and my presentation today is called Hope and Possibilities. I'm first of most a mom of two. My daughter Grace, who has special needs, will be 8 years old on Tuesday, and I have a typical daughter Lily, who is 10 years old. What led me here today is my daughter Grace. Grace spent the first 3 years of her life in the hospital, and most of that time she was in the intensive care unit. We did not have a diagnosis on Grace until she was a year and a half old. Nobody knew what was wrong with her. They basically were fighting symptoms without knowing what the underlying disease was. We went through a lot of transfers. We went to Mayo Clinic, New York Presbyterian Hospital. We went to Chicago Children's Hospital, and nobody knew what was wrong with my daughter. Her body continued to fail, shut down, several blood transfusions, 5 months of age, a feeding tube had to be placed. At a year and a half, she only weighed 8 pounds. And basically was a child not present. She was in a vegetated state, had absolutely no idea that I was her mom, that she had a sister, that she had grandparents and cousins that loved her. And I remember when we finally got our diagnosis on Grace, we were at Mayo Clinic. They just got done doing a brain biopsy. And I remember feeling really, really excited because they said, we finally know what's wrong with Grace. And at that moment in time, I was like the happiest mom in the world. But with that they had a diagnosis of mitochondrial cytochrome C, the prognosis for Grace was terminal. So in the same breath that they finally told me that they knew what was wrong with Grace, they also told me that my daughter was going to die. And at that time, there was only 5 other children cited with this type of mitochondrial, and they all had died before the age of 2, and I got my diagnosis at a year and a half. So I was very frantic, probably the same type of feelings that a lot of parents in this room have today when you get the diagnosis of autism, not really knowing what to do, where to turn, doctors telling you to accept that your child has autism and to move forward and that there's not a whole lot you can do. And you came to this conference today like I did with a drive to say, yes, there is something that you can do, that not everybody knows the answers, but there are physicians that think outside the box that can get you to that place. I had a lot of struggles like many of you in this room. By this time, I had Blue Cross Blue Shield, which I thought was an awesome insurance company, but my daughter's bills were $10 million. And I was responsible for 20% of that. And when we got her terminal diagnosis, of course, the insurance company dropped us. We were in a lot of financial strains, and we mortgaged homes, family and friends mortgaged homes. We did a lot of fundraising, and we really had nowhere else to turn, which I also find a lot of people with children with autism, because things are expensive, we all are in the same boat, that we're always trying to find ways to raise money and to get therapies for our children. The medical field at this time had basically given me no more medical options. They felt that they gave it their best shot. Now that Grace was terminal, they weren't going to do anything more to keep her alive. And the literature and the science behind it basically determined my daughter's fate. And this is where we all are in this room, where we become advocates for our children, and we easily become medical professionals, because sometimes we know more, actually a lot of times we know more than a lot of our physicians do, until you get into a room where doctors actually think outside the box and they're on the same page with you when you're trying to deal with your children's medical issues. Society basically was telling me to leave well enough alone. I had a healthy daughter, that maybe this was meant to be with my daughter Grace. I lost a lot of friends because, like you all know, we have friends that have typical children, and when our children aren't going through the same phases and they're not getting invited to birthday parties and they're not making the same milestones, it's really hard. And I lost some really good friends from college that I thought I would have for my lifetime. And because of my child's disability, a lot of that started to change, and so did my expectations. Religion and faith I had another issue with, because I had people taking me in to my priest to talk to me, to tell me that enough was enough. Grace had spent the first 3 years of her life in the hospital, and I did not leave the hospital at one time for almost 9 months, and my skin started to change color. And so my family was getting very concerned. They took me to our family priest, and I actually left there madder than when I did when I went in. And my family was actually madder that they took me there, because that gave me a little bit more drive, because this is how I felt. Yes, God may have had a plan for Grace, but what if the plan happened to be that I was a determined parent and I was the one being tested? Then how could I possibly... So my parents really regret taking me to the church that day, I can say that. And I left there going, okay, I have a purpose now, and now I'm madder than I was before I walked into these doors, and now I'm going to prove all of them wrong, and I have a purpose. We also had a lot of other family issues. Unfortunately, before I was in the hyperbaric field, my trade is psychology. And I know the statistics, unfortunately, for families living with special needs children. And I think right now it's as high as 85% end up in divorce. Unfortunately for me, I am one of those statistics. And I can tell you, the parents in this room you have issues, you really need to work and talk, because if there's any time that you need to become united, this is the time that you need to become united. But you also need to understand and accept that you can have different opinions about maybe the way that things take place with your children. But to really put them on paper, put yourself around positive people, other parents that are going through that. And a lot of times go to marriage counseling or go to, some type of church counseling if that's, what you would choose to do. I was getting hassled a lot again because I had a healthy daughter, and Lily was little at the time, so I kept her with me the whole time in the hospital. We brought her tricycle up into the intensive care, and she had a little doctor's jacket that had her name on it, and I got criticized for that, but I would not change that for one thing. I would take her again through this journey with me because she's an extraordinary little 10-year-old. I started to have a weakening support system, my family, and I was starting to have to listen to opinions of people that I didn't really want to listen to. And all I had left in my life was hope. And for those of you that may know me, hope is my most favorite word in the whole wide world. And if I could trademark it, I would. I ended up starting a foundation off of this word called Hyperbaric Oxygen Pediatric Endowment. And I believe that if we as parents don't have hope, that we have nothing. And it may not be hyperbaric oxygen, it may be something else, but you have to have something to hold on to, because if you don't have anything to hold on to, you don't have anything to go to. So you need to find whatever it is in your life that gives you hope, whether it's a family friend. I mean, for me, it was just looking at my daughter every day and knowing that I was her hope, I was her voice, and I had to be for her. And then the other thing I found is get rid of the negative people. Even if they're family members, accept and acknowledge and understand that they will always be your family, you will always love them, but at this point in your life, you need to put yourself around positive people. And those positive people will then get you to a different place where you can work through all the other family stuff later. But you can't change things. If something negative happens, you'll end up resenting your family. So I always recommend separating yourself if you have to. Put yourself around positive people, because at the end of your day, your family is your family, and you always can go back to them, and you can always have their love. My drive to where I'm at today is that I really, truly felt in my heart that it is possible that somewhere, somebody knew something that could help my daughter. And this door right here represents so many things. And this door represents that door, because you guys took that possibility the minute you walked through that door. Because when you walk through that door, you are now surrounded by people that do think outside the box. You are gonna listen to so many extraordinary speakers and human beings in the next 3 days that have taken chances with their careers for our children. And these are the doctors that are going to change your life. And not many doctors and therapists and so forth will guarantee you anything, but I guarantee you that you will leave this conference with something that will change your life. It might not be everything that is in this conference, and there's a lot of information that you're gonna be bombarded with, but I guarantee you and give you my word that there'll be something that is gonna alter your child in some way. And I wanna just give you guys a round of applause for taking that and walking through that door and taking that opportunity to help your child in this way. Give yourself a round of applause.